So now we continue with the explanation of what happens in the kidney. I already explained you as such, but now we will read out from the chapter. So the function of kidney, production of urine, that is the function of kidney and production of urine. The production of urine occurs in three major steps: ultrafiltration, reabsorption, and tubular secretion. First one, ultrafiltration. The blood flows to the glomerulus under great pressure, which is much greater than in the capillaries elsewhere. The reason for this greater pressure is that the efferent outer arteriole is narrower than the efferent inner incoming arteriole. This high pressure, that is hydrostatic pressure, causes the liquid part of the blood to filter out from the glomerulus into the renal tubule. This filtration under extraordinary force is called ultrafiltration. So I told you that way that this particular efferent arteriole is broader, whereas the efferent arteriole, which is over there, which is coming after the capillaries over here, the glomerulus over here, is narrower. Due to the difference in the size, there is a huge amount of pressure generated, the huge amount of hydrostatic pressure generated over here, and due to this high amount of pressure, whatever is the liquid content, that is the plasma content of the blood, is going to be oozed out, it is going to be thrown out, it is going to be given out in from this particular glomerulus as a glomerulus filtrate, and this particular process is called as ultrafiltration, which is collected in the Bowman's capsule. During ultrafiltration, almost all the liquid part of the blood, plasma, along with most of its organic, inorganic substances like urea, glucose, amino acids, etc., comes out of the glomerulus and passes into the funnel-shaped cavity of the Bowman's capsule. So yes, we see that during ultrafiltration, the complete liquid part, the complete plasma part of the blood, including the ones which are the organic and inorganic the salts which are present inside, or the amino acids, or the glucose, everything is going to be thrown out of the blood. The fluid entering the renal tubule is called the glomerulus filtrate. Okay, the fluid entering the renal tubule is the glomerular filtrate. The glomerular filtrate consists of water, urea, salts, glucose, and other plasma solutes. So the one which is entering over here, this black color part जो थोड़ा dotted जो दिखा है, तो ये जो पूरा जो blue color का जो मैं line दिखा रहा हूँ, yeah, we can consider it that way, that these are the glomerulus filtrate. Glomerular filtrate. The glomerular filtrate consists of water, urea, salts, glucose, and other plasma solutes. The thicker part of the blood left behind in the glomerulus after ultrafiltration, namely the two kinds of corpuscles, proteins, and other large molecules, are carried forward through the efferent arteriole. Thus, the blood proceeding away from the glomerulus is relatively thick. Of course, then whatever is remaining will be only the thicker part, which will be the large molecules, some kind of the proteins, the corpuscles, the RBC, WBC, and platelets. All these are going to remain over here, and they are going to be pushed forward by the pressure which is coming from the backside. Otherwise you will say okay, वो जाता कैसे अगर पूरा का पूरा liquid चला गया तो, but yeah, it will be thicker, but it will be able to flow because of the pressure from the backside. So the second stage is reabsorption. So as I told you, the second stage will be this particular thick filtrate which is over here is going to come over here and reabsorb the fluids, whatever is required, and the salt which is required by the blood for its normal functioning. You can also see that I have given this as a red color and then I have converted it into blue. That also shows that the oxygen which was the renal artery which carried the oxygen for the these particular nephrons is going to be taken away, and then over here it becomes carbon dioxide, and that's why the renal vein will be rich in carbon dioxide but it will not have any impurities, whereas the renal artery will be rich in oxygen but it will have a lot of impurities in it. So yeah, this one is pure blood, purified blood, but only thing is it is deoxygenated, whereas this one is a oxygenated blood but it is impure blood. So glomerulus filtrate entering the renal tubule is not urine. This is extremely dilute solution containing a lot of useful material including glucose and some salts such as those of sodium. As the filtrate passes down the tubule, much of the water is reabsorbed together with the useful substances, but the reabsorption is only to extent that the normal concentration of blood is not disturbed. This is called selective absorption. So here, once it is entering into this particular area, there will be selective reabsorption. So selective reabsorption means what? It is going to take in only those substances which are required for not hindering the normal constitution of the blood. The next is tubular secretion. Certain substances like potassium in the normal course and a large number of foreign chemicals including drugs like penicillin are passed into the forming urine in the distal convoluted tubes. This passage involves the activity of the cells of the tubular walls and hence it is called as tubular secretions, and the filtrate left after reabsorption and tubular secretion is called as urine. So whatever is the over here, the distal tubular, whatever is the thing which is not required, which is required by the body. So you can see that some penicillin are some drugs and all which are going to be passed into. So some certain things are such that which are need to be passed to the urine. So those things will be discarded, or large number of foreign chemicals including the drugs like penicillin are passed into in the forming urine and the distal in the distal convoluted tube. So that is the area where these drugs and all are going to be given out. So yeah, the filtrate left after reabsorption and tubular secretion. So once after that, whatever is the filtrate remaining will be the urine. So they are given you the stepwise formation, and that is cumulus. There is ultrafiltration taking place over here. In the Bowman's curve, receives the cumulus filtrate. Then in the PCT, reabsorb most water, or about 2/3, and most of the glucose, sodium, and chlorides. Loop of Henle, some absorption of water and sodium ions. So here maximum amount of water and salt and glucose, everything. Here only certain amount of water and sodium. And over here is reabsorption of remaining chlorides and water. Remaining chlorides and water is over here. And then walls secrete potassium and foreign chemicals such as penicillin and other drugs into the forming urine. So the walls over here are going to give out some secretions. There will be tubular secretions given out by the walls of the DCT, which will be given out in the form of urine. So walls secrete potassium and foreign chemicals such as penicillin and other drugs into the forming urine. So finally is the urine excretion. Final urine passes into the collecting duct to the pelvis and through the ureter into the urinary bladder by ureteral peristalsis, waves of constriction in the ureter. So there will be constriction, continuous waves, so that way it will make the urine pass into the urinary bladder. And due to gravity, urine is expelled from the urinary bladder through the urethra in penis in the males and directly in females by relaxation of the sphincter muscle located at the opening of the urinary bladder in the urethra under impulse from the nervous system. Such a process is called micturition. So when the urinary bladder is full, then the urine is going to be expelled out by the brain is going to sense that particular urine, that the urinary bladder is full, and it is going to give the command to the sphincter muscles to open. So relax. When they relax, the urine is going to pass to the urethra. So in case of males, there is a penis which is going to act as a urethra. So whereas in females, it is direct or urethra opening given at in the top of the vagina. So that's the urine is going to be passed out, and this process of urination is called as micturition. All these functions involved in urine production require energy. Hence, the oxygen demand of the kidney is 6 to 7 times higher than what is required by the muscles. So you can see that the oxygen, all these will require energy, and that's why a good amount of oxygen is going to come over here, and it is going to be required 6 to 7 times more amount of oxygen will be required than any other normal kind of muscles. Now you see the physical properties of urine. Color, clear yellow due to the pigment urochrome. So the color yellow to the urine is given by the pigment called urochrome. It is urochrome which is giving the yellow color to it. But otherwise color also varies with the diet. So if you have got too much of amount of water taken in, so definitely you will get a clear color. But if you don't have enough water, then it will be slightly yellowish in color. Volume wise, around 1 to 1.5 liters per day, but varies. pH value 5 to 8. So it is slightly acidic, neutral, and slightly basic also. So it is ranging from 5 to 8. Usually it is slightly acidic, pH value 6. Protein diet makes it acidic, while vegetable diet makes it alkaline. Odor, on standing, the smell of urine becomes strong, ammonia-like due to bacterial activities, otherwise faint smell. Normally it is not going to smell much, but when it is stored at a particular place, not of course they are not going to store it, but when it is going to be collected in a huge quantity at a certain place, you normally have the ammonia-like smell coming out. That is what you normally can smell out when you are passing a सुलभ शौचालय. So हमें कभी भी यूरिनरी के पास ऐसे पास होंगे तो क्या होता है, you smell, it smells. Why it smells? Because it is not cleaned properly. If the urine is going to stay over there for a longer time, then not thoroughly cleaned properly, then definitely it will give you ammonia-like smell. Specific gravity 1.003 to 1.035, almost like water. Constituents of urine. The normal human urine consists of about 95% of water and 5% of solid waste dissolved in it. So yeah, urine will be 95% water and only 5% of dissolved waste. The percentage of solid waste may slightly vary according to the food taken and according to time after taking the food, but usually this is approximately in grams per liter of the urine as follows. So you can see organic wise, the gram per liter in case of organic material, urea will be 2.3 grams per liter, creatine will be 1.5 grams per liter, uric acid 0.7 grams per liter, others will be 2.6 grams per liter. Whereas inorganic substances like sodium chloride will be 9 grams per liter, so that's the maximum part. Potassium chloride 2.5 grams per liter, ammonia 0.6 grams per liter, others 2.5 grams per liter. Besides the normal constituent, the urine may pass out certain hormones and also certain medicines like antibiotics and excess of vitamins. So yeah, the body, when it is going to, the certain amount of things which are not required by the body is going to be thrown out by the body. So that excretion of those things like the excess of vitamins and all will also be a part and parcel of the urine in a normal case. But there are certain cases, if the presence of the certain material is there in the urine, it would indicate that the person is suffering from some kind of a disease. So these are called as the abnormal constituents of urine. So we will now study the abnormal constituents of urine, which tells us that there is some kind of a problem to that particular organ system which is causing this particular kind of a material to be given out in urine. So first one is blood cells, hematuria. So whenever there is a blood cells, that is if you feel WBC or RBC coming out from in the urine, then it will be indicating that the person is suffering from something which is called as hematuria. In this, the blood passes in with urine due to the infection in urinary tract, kidney stone or tumors. You can understand it very clearly. अगर ये जगह पे, if there is some kind of a damage caused to this glomerulus filtrate, what will happen? Even the WBC and RBC are going to enter into the tubules, and hence they are going to come out from the thing, or because they cannot be reabsorbed anywhere. So when could that happen? This could happen if there is some kind of a kidney stone or some kind of an infection in the urinary tract. If this tract or this area over here, if they have got certain kind of infection, and that's why there will be passage of the RBC, WBC or the corpuscles into the urine, then we say that the person may be suffering from hematuria or infection of the urinary tract. The second is glucose or glycosuria. Excess glucose passes with urine due to diabetes mellitus, that is sugar diabetes. So whenever a person is suffering from sugar diabetes, that is diabetes mellitus, at that time the blood contains good amount of glucose, which is more than what is required by the body and which is not digested by body by the insulin. So in such cases, that excess of sugar is going to be given out in the form of urine. So urine is going to be will sweeten taste because it will be having the glucose in it. Now there's something over here that it may sound awkward to talk about the taste of the urine. However, normally it is salty. When sweetish, the condition may be due to sugar diabetes, urine containing the sugar glucose due to inefficient insulin, and ants gather to lick the urine of the diabetic patient. That is, if a diabetic patient is urinating anywhere and if the ants are coming up, so yeah, because it has got sugar in it. When tasteless, it is due to the much water in the urine, a condition called diabetes insipidus due to insufficient ADH hormone. Insipid means tasteless. So normally it will contain some salts, but if it is completely tasteless, it will be because of more amount of water given out from the body. The third one is albumin. So due to high blood pressure or due to increased permeability of the Bowman's capsule membrane on account of bacterial infection. So in case some proteins are given out over here, because normally the proteins cannot pass through, the bigger protein molecules cannot pass through, but if they are passing through, that means there is some kind of increased permeability, they are able to pass through. So permeability of the Bowman's capsule will increase due to bacterial infection, and in such cases there will be albumin in the urine. And finally is the bile pigment, that is anemia or hepatitis or jaundice due to liver cirrhosis. So if at all the liver is giving out some amount of bile pigment, and it is so the blood contains more amount of bile pigment in the urine, so then it is going to be, the cause would be any problem with the hemoglobin, or that is anemia, or it could be any problem with the liver, which is hepatitis like jaundice, or it could be due to liver cirrhosis. So these are the conditions which are the abnormal conditions, or we can say the abnormalities, abnormal constituents of the urine, which is there. Now we continue with the regulation of urine outputs. So just check up. Right, so we can continue with the regulation of urine output. The pituitary gland and diuresis, that is increased production of urine. Concentration of urine by water reabsorption is controlled by antidiuretic hormone secreted by the posterior lobes of the pituitary gland. See, the pituitary gland is a endocrine gland. We are going to study it in the endocrine system. So the endocrine gland, the pituitary gland, produces a hormone which is called as ADH, that is antidiuretic hormone. Now this antidiuretic hormone is going to supervise the amount of water which needs to be retained and the amount of water which needs to be retained in the blood. So if the retention of the blood, if water in the blood is not going to be much more, or you can say that there is a problem, or the concentration of urine by water reabsorption is controlled by antidiuretic. So in case the ADH secretion is reduced, there is an increased production of urine. So if it so happens that the ADH is not produced properly, then most of the water from the body is going to be lost in the form of urine, because there is no proper reabsorption. Okay, so even if you are not taking too much of water and still you are feeling like urinating, that means that you are giving out a lot of water from the body. That may be one of the reasons that you may be having a problem with the secretion of the ADH in your body, and that is nothing but diabetes insipidus. So the ADH secretion is reduced, there is an increased production of urine. This is called as diuresis. Substances that increase the formation of urine are called as diuretics, the liquid diet, tea, coffee, alcohol, etc. So whenever there is certain times it is so that the food what you intake, they produce a lot of water in the body, and that particular water which is there needs so the excretion which is going to be done. So increased amount of urine which is going to be caused by certain food is called as diuretic substances. So tea, coffee, liquid diets, these are the one which causes more amount, alcohol which causes more amount of urination for the body. Hence they are the diuretics of the body. Gouts and kidney stone. Uric acid is relatively less soluble in water and may crystallize and get deposited in joints, causing gouts. Excess uric acid in certain salts like calcium oxalate may be the source of kidney stones when the kidneys are not working fully normally. So when the kidneys are not moving functioning properly, there may be a condition wherein the gouts or the kidney stones are formed due to the excess of uric acid or the oxalates combining to form a crystal-like structure. So these crystal-like structures which are formed and which are called as the gouts or kidney stones. Now we see something which is osmoregulation. Osmoregulation means the amount of water content in our body. So osmotic pressure, the osmotic pressure of body. So the kidney, while removing waste like urea from the blood, also regulates its composition, that is the percentage of water and salts. This function is called osmoregulation. It implies the regulation of osmotic pressure of the blood. So it is seen that when the kidney is going to do the process of excretion, at that time it is going to maintain the constituents of the blood in a proper manner, so that it has got the right amount of water and the salts present in it, so that there is a enough amount of proper amount of osmotic pressure generated in the body. So that osmotic pressure generated in the blood, so to maintain that osmotic pressure, which this is nothing but osmoregulation. Drinking enough water directly or through food helps the kidney in proper working. In tropical climate, as in our country, we drink a lot of water during summer. Yet we urinate fewer times in summer than in winter, and the urine passed is generally thick. You will always find that in case of summers, you drink a lot of water, but still you don't feel like urinating. Okay? Whereas in winter, if you take too much water, every hour or so you need to go to the washroom. Why is that so? Because the body is going to utilize the water in the summer season. In the summer, there is a loss of water by dehydration of the body by means of sweat and the heat, which needs to be compensated by drinking a lot of water. That's why you do not the water in the body is not going to be in excess that needs to be excreted out, and that's the reason, because the water is not in excess, the urine which is given out during summer will be thicker as compared to the urine given out in the winters, because in summer season, because the water content in the body is less, so the urine becomes thicker. So the urine pass is generally thicker. The reason is that in summer we lose a considerable part of the water through perspiration, and the kidney have to reabsorb more water from the urine, making it more concentrated. So what happens is most of the water which is there is going to be reabsorbed over here, because the constitution of the blood needs to be maintained. So even if it is summer, we are taking a lot of amount of water, but that much amount of water, if we already lost it by perspiration, we need to, with the blood will be requiring that amount of water, and that's why it will be taken in by the reabsorption material. So that's why only a part of the water is going to be discarded, and hence the urine which is being formed will be thicker and more concentrated. In cholera, the patient suffers from vomiting and water bowels. His intestines are unable to absorb water in the body, in the blood. The result is that his kidneys reabsorb almost all the water from the urine in the renal tubule, and with it even the urea. Ultimately, the patient may die due to poisoning by the accumulation of high quantity of urea in his body, that is uremia. The immediate treatment is to replenish water in the blood by glucose saline drip or by giving oral rehydration solution ORS through the mouth. So you can see that during cholera, okay, what happens is that the body is going to be, the person is going to start vomiting. So when vomiting, he will lose a lot of amount of water. Plus, he will be having watery bowels. Why? Because the reabsorption capacity of the large intestine reduces in that case, and that's why most of the water which was supposed to be reabsorbed by the body during the digestive part is just thrown out in the feces. So the water content in the body is drastically reduced. So what happens? Here, whatever water is present in the body is going to be reabsorbed by the blood. So that's the reason the urea which was present over here is not getting discarded out from the body, because it does not have a carrier to get discarded with. So because of this, the urea in the body keeps on accumulating, and it may be even fatal. So that's the reason what the immediate cure will be. The cholera patient, if at all he is so serious, he will be given, firstly he will be just given ORS on a regular basis, that is the oral rehydration system, that is the electral वगैरह जो हम लोग पीते हैं वो. अगर उससे काम हो गया, very good. अगर उससे काम नहीं हुआ, and if he is still not able to urinate, then he will be given the drips. The drips, that is the वो bottle में आता है ना, ग्लूकोज ड्रिप जो आते हैं, saline drips जो आते हैं, glucose saline drips are given to him. The water balance in the human body. The human body contains nearly 40 liters of water, which forms 60% of the body weight. Average daily loss of water and gain of water in the adult human male in good health at rest in temperature climate is loss in urine by kidneys is 1.5 liters, around 60%. By sweat, 500 ml, 20%. In breathing by lungs, 400 ml, 16%. In feces, 100 ml, 4%. So totally 2.5 liters of the water is lost by our body. And gain wise, in drinks as water or in beverages, 1.5 liters. That is what is minimum requirement of the body. You need to drink at least 2 liters of water daily. In food, 700 ml, that is 25%. And metabolic water, that is product of cellular respiration, is 300 ml, that is 12%. So that's why you need to take 2.5 liters of blood of water, so that it compensates with the 2.5 liters of water which is discarded by the body. So the intake and output of the water would slightly vary according to the climate and lifestyle of a person. We now move on to the artificial kidney, that is the last part of the chapter. Now this is, see, it is not necessary that the organs are going to function the same way throughout. There will be some other problem coming out, and if a person has got a defective kidney, if there is any kind of a problem given by the kidney is not going to function, then it is going to be a very problematic thing. Normally, yes, it's good that we are having two kidneys, so one is a redundant part, so yeah, both the kidneys work together. But even if one of the kidney is not functioning, a person can easily survive and easily do his normal functioning with only one kidney available to him. A person can easily survive without any problems. Yeah, he may not be able to do some strenuous activities, like he cannot play games like football and all, or may not go for a marathon or something like that. But if about a normal working, normal going to the offices and coming back and things like that, yeah, there is no problem at all, even with just one kidney available for them. But if both the kidneys fail, then the person will have to go for removal of the nitrogenous waste by external machinery, that is called as dialysis machine. A dialysis machine is a machine which is connected to the body, and so एक वेन से उसको कनेक्ट करते हैं, तो ब्लड जो ये काम करता है वो सेम चार्ज वो मशीन करता है कि वो ब्लड में से सब नाइट्रोजन वेस्ट को निकालेगा, एंड द ब्लड इज अगेन पुट बैक इनटू द बॉडी. सो द डायलिसिस मशीन से ब्लड पास होगा एंड इट इज बैक इनटू द बॉडी. इट इज ऑन 2 hours टाइम फॉर द कंप्लीट ब्लड टू गेट purified, and this needs to be done at least twice or thrice in a week for a person to remain healthy. So dialysis, एक बार अगर kidney खराब हो गया तो the person needs to go for dialysis every twice or thrice a week. So if one kidney is damaged or removed for some reason, the other kidney alone is sufficient for excretory needs, and the person can lead a normal life, but failure of both the kidneys would lead to death. Artificial kidney is a dialysis machine. The patient's blood is led from a radial artery in his arm. So यहाँ पे arm से radial artery से वो लेते हैं to the machine, where the urea and excess salts are removed and the purified blood is returned to the vein in the same arm. In case of permanent damage of the kidney, dialysis is to be repeated for about 12 hours twice a week. I think that is reduced now. It is no longer 12 hours. It is done in 3 or 4 hours now, and it can be extended to 3 times thrice a week. But yeah, you can consider as a standard rule of 12 hours for 2 weeks. That is the dialysis machine, and yeah, so we can see the summary of the excretory system. The carbon dioxide is given out by the lungs as gas is the expired air. Minerals like nitrogen waste, mainly urea, creatine, and uric acid is given out by the kidney and the skin. kidney as a urine constituent and skin as a constituent of sweat. Through sweat contains only small quantity of nitrogenous products. Water, kidney will give out the excess amount of water through the main constituent of urine. Skin, water loss as a main constituent of sweat. Lungs, water loss as water vapor in the expired air. And bile pigment from the hemoglobin breakdown through the liver to the intestine via bile juice poured into the duodenum. So through which it is going into the feces. So that was about the chapter excretory system. So we completed the chapter in 3 videos. So yeah, it was quite a simple chapter. As I told you even last time, again the same thing, that the structural application questions over here, the structural questions over here, these questions which are here are very, very important. You need to go through them properly and see whether you are able to understand or you are able to reply to answer to these questions properly, because these are the ones which are going to be asked in your examination. So very, very important questions are there. So that was about the chapter excretory system. Thank you.